Revelation Unraveled, Part 35, The Rosary and Corresponding Segments. A notable feature of the new text structure, St. John's cryptogram, is the number 5 segments, which merit further examination. W5, R5, B5, and P5 act as dividers or turning points between the first 4 and last 4 events in each phase of the end times: apostasy, war, tribulation, and Armageddon. The first 4 events are always announced by one of the 4 horsemen, and the last 4 events, which follow the pivotal number 5 segments, are always announced by a herald angel. The 4 number 5 segments have a life of their own of great significance. They narrate a brief history of the church as it reflects the life of Christ, and also as Christ's life is depicted in the Rosary. W5, R5, B5, and P5 mirror the joyful, luminous, sorrowful, and glorious mysteries, and also the birth, life, death, and resurrection of the church. In W5, the woman brings forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with an iron rod. The child is not only Christ, but also the Catholic Church, which Mary gives birth to. This segment clearly expands on the joyful mysteries of the Rosary, particularly the Nativity. R5 depicts 5 ways to defeat the devil, just as the luminous mysteries provide insights into some of the sacramental powers displayed during Christ's brief public ministry on earth. First, Satan loses his primordial battle with Saint Michael. Next, the saints overcome him through the blood of the Lamb. Third, the woman manages to escape from his clutches. And fourth, the earth swallows up the flood which Satan sends after to drown her. Lastly, the dragon goes to make war with the rest of the woman's spiritual children, a war he is destined to lose. In the third segment, B5, the church is crucified, just like her bridegroom, Jesus Christ. The key paragraph is 13:7, which tersely reveals the Antichrist's total subjugation of the church. This event corresponds with the sorrowful mysteries, especially the death and burial of our Lord. The last segment, P5, describes the glorious resurrection of the church, just as the glorious mysteries tell of Christ's rebirth. 144,000 faithful and true raptured Christians stand with Christ on Mount Zion, ready to begin the 1,000-year millennium on earth. Just as the ROC chart, St. John's cryptogram, reveals 4 dividing segments of the 15 end-time chapters, which parallel the 4 mysteries of the Rosary, the entire book of Revelation as a whole is similarly divided. The first 3 chapters consist of letters by St. John to 7 churches in Asia, which symbolize the fledgling church, and therefore correspond to the early years of Christ's life on earth as expounded in the joyful mysteries of the Rosary. The next 2 chapters describe 4 fantastic creatures which worship at the throne of God, plus an image of Christ holding the scroll, which he will unseal in the end times section. These chapters, 4 and 5, correspond with the luminous mysteries of the Rosary, which in turn chronicle Jesus' institution of the sacraments as well as his public ministry. The next 15 chapters, which we have already analyzed extensively, concern the passion of the church, its trials, its sufferings, and eventual martyrdom. Certainly these are a vivid reflection of the sorrowful mysteries of the Rosary. Lastly, the new heaven and the new earth is delineated in the final 2 chapters, refer to the church in glory, just as the glorious mysteries of the Rosary relate both Jesus and Mary's ascensions into heaven. Thus, St. John organizes his writing in such a way as to give honor to Mary's Rosary, which is the ultimate weapon and our one hope for victory over the final wiles of Satan. The martyred, the raptured, the protected. There are 8 sections where martyrs for the Lord are mentioned. The first 4 groups in W2, W7, R5, and B2 wear white robes, play harps, or indicate by some other means that they are in heaven and have already received their eternal reward. The apostasy group, W2, is told to wait until their fellow servants are slain. The martyrs in W7 are killed during the preliminary stage of the reign of the Antichrist. And in R5, more martyrs occupy heaven who overcame Satan through the blood of the Lamb. Finally, in B2, the last martyrs before the reign of the Antichrist, 144,000 Jews and a multitude of Gentiles, earn their crowns during the Great Tribulation. In B6, however, just following St. John's description of the 2 beasts, and therefore the beginning of the full reign of the Antichrist, the situation changes. Now the martyrs are referred to as blessed, and from henceforth they rest from their labors. The word henceforth means that those who are martyred from now until the very end of Armageddon will enjoy a special privilege. They will return to earth with Christ and reign with him during the millennium. These martyrs are described later in P9 as the souls that are beheaded. In B6, they are described as the dead, and they have 3 characteristics. They die in the Lord, they rest from their labors, and their works follow them. In P9, these same souls are given 7 more attributes. They are beheaded, they testify for Jesus, they testify for God, they do not adore the beast nor his image, nor take the mark on their foreheads, nor on their hands. As we will discover, these martyred, like the raptured and the protected, evince a total of 12 attributes. Several more succeeding groups are also described in different terms than those who were martyred previously. In B9, a great multitude is also blessed because they are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. This is a strong contrast to the earlier martyrs who wear white, play harps, and are obviously in heaven. These are the raptured, who also do not suffer martyrdom and seem to dwell temporarily in a heavenly place, although probably not paradise itself. Very likely, they are in the same spiritual plateau where the 2 witnesses, Enoch and Elias, wait for their return to earth. They constitute the great army which will follow Christ to earth. As the raptured wait near heaven for their return with Christ onto Mount Zion, P5, they are designated singing servants, who sing with 3 traits: the voice of a great multitude, the voice of many waters, and the voice of many thunders. In section P5, we meet the exact same group, which we should recognize as the raptured saints, who return to earth because they sing their new canticle, with almost the exact same adjectives: the noise of many waters, the voice of great thunder, and the voice of harpers. To these traits are added 7 more: undefiled with women, virgins, followers of the Lamb, purchased from among men, first fruits to God and the Lamb, without lie and without spot. In this passage, the act of rapture is called purchasing. This is an important phrase because St. John mentions it twice. These raptured are purchased from the earth and purchased from among men. Incidentally, this is a good verification from the author that when he uses the symbol earth, he intends it to mean mankind. In section B8, we meet a third blessed group, but they exhibit only two attributes. They watch and they keep their garments. This is very unusual because St. John hardly ever uses two descriptions when he can use three. This group appears again in P9, and they attain three more traits. They are given seats, they sit on the seats, and they receive judgment. Here St. John could easily make two descriptions do for three, since receiving seats and sitting on them is almost identical phraseology. The author obviously separated them on purpose, because he wanted these protected to have a total of 5 attributes. So where are the other 5? The protected need 5 more traits to match the total of 10 ascribed to the martyred and the raptured. To find the missing 5, we need to return to section R5, where Mary's seed, spiritual children, flee into the desert. As we have noted, the woman represents Mary as well as her faithful children. Their 5 additional attributes include they are persecuted, they receive wings, they flee into the desert, they receive nourishment, and they are helped by the earth. A combination of 7 and 3 characteristics, as with the raptured and martyred, would not work here, because the number 5 is required to manifest Mary's rosary. All 3 millennial groups ultimately display a total of 12 characteristics, and the 3 groups together constitute a solid liquid gas trinity. The beheaded suffer what is termed a wet martyrdom because of the extensive bloodletting. The protected flee to a dry desert place, while the raptured complete the Trinity, since they are taken up into the air. The word blessed is the term St. John applies to all 3 millennial groups, and he refers to them a total of 7 times in the end times chapters. It is the new text revisions of the ROC chart, St. John's cryptogram, which clarify the status of all 3 groups of faithful Christians and martyrs throughout the Apocalypse. In the original sequence, for example, the 144,000 who return with Christ on Mount Zion were described back in chapter 14 before the martyrs in chapter 15, who play their harps in heaven and sing the canticle of Moses. But St. John writes that the 144,000 raptured sing a new canticle. It's only when we rearrange the text into its true chronological order that we find the raptured group who sing their new canticle after the earlier martyred group in heaven, which do not return to earth, and sings the old canticle of Moses.